Hey, Cyberspace, Nathan Wallace coming at you from my home office today. Today is September 7th, 2018, and this is the third or fourth video as far as industry news. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos, I like to divide things up into three different categories: general, power system, cybersecurity, conferences, and then we're actually going to wrap things up at the bottom with a little bit of a side rant. I like to do a little venting here, mainly with regards to is EMP really FUD? So we'll kind of look at that, and I'll kind of share some of my personal thoughts on this. So let's get started. Hurricane outlook looks like we overall. I know we here in Louisiana we kind of missed Gordon, but let's see. So overall, there's four systems. We still have Gordon there. Up in Arkansas, tropical depression. Florence is out there, mainly posing a threat to the East Coast, and then there's these two other systems. So, heart of hurricane season. We have four disturbances kind of moving here. Definitely, the utilities are prepping for all of these, I'm sure. So let's see, Gordon. It was reported, that as soon as it made landfall, I think there was like 40,000 at least what was being reported as far as power outage to that U.S. Let's see. So thousands remain in the dark Wednesday morning. 21. This is saying 21,000 at least for Alabama area. Keep on cruising. I mean, they were pretty quick, right? They were pretty quick with the restoration. Good old Entergy sent some folks over to kind of assist with the neighboring states as far as their outages. So they were prepping. Saw a lot of good pictures as far as them, fueling up, moving over. Kind of staging, right, to get ready to provide assistance. So it's pretty good. I mean, a lot of these hurricanes, it's really a testament to the linemen. Once they come in, how quick these linemen work, how well the emergency management systems kick in, for the utilities, right, to where they respond to these different events. I mean, you think about how quick they have to mobilize, how quick they have to move, remobilize, demob. So I mean, it's really a testament to how the efficiencies when it comes to restoration after these types of storms. So moving on, Arizona Public Service Low Income Solar Program. So this is a program that I think they just announced, or if it's a low income family, kicks off low income solar program. Basically, for low income customers, there's a program where the utility, Arizona Public Service, will actually come in and install solar panels on your roof, and then they'll send you a monthly $30 bill as far as credit. So this is really cool. Let's say the utility doesn't have the real estate, they can come in now and install these solar panels, which then puts more renewable energy onto the grid. It helps kind of cut costs as far as generation cost or buying power for that utility from other neighboring utilities as far as the market goes, right? The power market. So this is really, looking at as far as how the utilities, instead of having this so-called death spiral, as customers bring online more distributed energy resources. Well, that's what the power company sells, right? Is power. So this is really a new model, almost as far as the electric utility goes. So that's some good news as far as that program kicking things off there in Arizona. Let's see. Next, we have this is actually being reported by BBC News. I think I forget the exchange rate. This is what, £1 billion, so it's like $1.3 million. Offshore wind farm, largest in the world. These things are huge. Let's see, can generate 659 megawatts, enough power for 60,000 homes. That's a lot. Look at that. It's pretty. I mean, I think it's kind of pretty. I guess it's the nerd in me, right? Let's see. I forget how tall. It said something. I was reading this earlier as far as twice the size of Big Ben. There we go. Each turbine is 623 feet, 190 meters high, about twice the height of Big Ben. So those things are huge. All right, keep on cruising. IEEE Smart Grid webinar. This was a webinar hosted yesterday, matter of fact, by the IEEE Smart Grid. I'm going to bring this up over here. So yeah, live webinar is this guy right here, which I think they're going to move it over to, right, once they work all the recordings and stuff out, they're going to move it over to past webinars, and you can have access to the recorded version of this webinar. But the importance of IEEE standard 2030-2011 smart grid interoperability reference model. So these are some folks that's been working, I think I heard on the webinar, like 5-6 years to develop this reference model to kind of compare, standardize different technologies. Where would they be placed within the smart grid? What informational domains would be talking to what? Great webinar. Great initiative, right, overall, to really create this reference model. So I'm going to pull up the Twitter. So they were tweeting the IEEE Smart Grid kind of live here. So let's kind of keep on cruising. So look at recent applications, IEEE 1547. So this was really, as far as an implementation or application of this standard. So it just talks about the different domains here, implementation, and yeah, this point to this point here, standards enable new market development, because we're defining now these domains, these logical informational domains, applications within the smart grid. You can now facilitate whole new industries, whole new market around this. So that was pretty cool. Let's see. These are the different links. Actually, I want to jump down here. So this graph, and I'm sure y'all probably, there we go. This shows kind of the logical connections as far as the architecture, what's communicating with what, and you see you can't make out these numbers. I can't even make out these numbers here on this image, but this defines the link between this domain and then this domain or function block here, and then you can come back up here. Where's it at? Right, so this is the type of information. This is the type of links that are established between these different domains. So this is really cool work. A lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of expertise went into this, and this is actually from computer scientists, power system engineers. This isn't just random IT, or not necessarily random IT, but back office IT. This is really focused on the smart grid and power system applications. So that was pretty cool. Get a chance to check that out. Maybe we can dive into the standard in the future. Let's see. Another thing, John Hopkins released a report. Crafting emergency orders. So here it is. Resiliency for grid, security, emergencies, opportunities for industry and government collaboration. Really looking forward to taking a deep dive into this. I was kind of hoping to do that already. But 108 pages, a lot of information as far as the different things that can happen to the grid. And basically discussing all these different opportunities as far as where specifically the government and industry can collaborate more. And you think we've been collaborating enough, but when you really look at the fine print, what's happening, what isn't, there is of course a lot of room for some additional collaboration. But one thing I wanted to note, this just isn't cybersecurity, right? This is cyber physical security, geomagnetic and electromagnetic even. The text here, which once again 108 pages talking about this stuff, grid security overall, right? So the author here actually talks about electromagnetic, actually talks about geomagnetic. So this gets back down to my rant later as far as people calling this stuff FUD, and well, obviously it's not. But yeah, I was going to save that for later. Let's see, keep on cruising. So specific to power system cybersecurity, it was kind of a slow week, which is always a good thing when it's a slow week as far as this topic. But this is a vendor, basically. The NV Energy implements Itron's cloud-based demand-side management system. So this distribution, right? So the demand load basically is what they're talking about, and this is the management system, and it's shoved in the cloud. So what's interesting is this just these 3 paragraphs alone, the number of times that cybersecurity is stated. So this does bring up an interesting thing, as far as, well, I guess 2 things really: supply chain. So this is a company now that's using a outsourced solution or tool to facilitate their own service. And then secondly, we're in the cloud. So what are the security implications of that? We talked about the cloud. Yeah, it is, honestly, if you really get in there and look, the cloud, it can be when it's done properly, can be easier to manage and secure than, let's say, on-premise infrastructure. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, as far as the cloud, is, we looked at the kind of some of those side channel attacks as far as Meltdown and Spectre. It was really cool. Some cloud service providers, infrastructure service providers, within a couple of hours, days of that announcement, all of their data centers were patched, as far as the Spectre and Meltdown. So you can really scale, and the redundancy that the cloud offers, in a lot of ways, it's better than what you can have on-prem, on site, on your premise. So yeah, that brings up some good stuff. I know there's actually a working group within the IEEE Power System Communications and Cybersecurity Technical Committee looking at cloud applications and how do we secure the cloud for power grid applications. So this is cool, something to look at, but it does bring up, like I said, two things with regards to supply chain and operating these systems, or at least having grid-based applications in the cloud. So that's one thing. Let's see. Number 2, Senator Johnson proposes gutting provisions for chemical plants. It's like, wow, chemical plants. Why are we talking about them when we're only talking about power systems? So chemical facility security news. Let's see. Protecting the security chemical facilities from terrorist acts. While there are a number of complex changes proposed in the bill, the program that will be addressed in the subsequent blog post stands out. The requirement to remove cybersecurity requirements. So, this is a provision that's looking at removing some cybersecurity requirements. And I'm not too familiar with the chemical standards, and as far as I know, I don't think any of it is really auditable. Like we have in the power industry, where there's some central authority who has the ability to go in and actually audit these types of requirements. Let's see. But I did want to bring it up, right? Because a lot of these chemical plants, any type of industrial, when they connect, they rely on the power grid. And, in a lot of cases, they require their own connecting substation or switch yard to connect that industrial facility to the grid. So that's now control and communications. That's all being managed and monitored by that industrial facility, which could have security implications to the connecting utility. So I just wanted to bring that up. It definitely creates an interesting analysis, or I guess kind of like a thought experiment, right? To say, okay, well, what if the chemical plant is compromised? What impact would that have as far as to the local grid? All right, let's see. Keep on cruising. This next thing, I think this is from General Petraeus. Let's see. Case for a national security agency. Our grab bag approach isn't working. General David Petraeus says it's time to go big. So yeah, there we go, talking about this is the DHS briefing as far as activity in the grid. Foreign nation state activity at one of the power plants or control centers. There's a lot of back and forth as far as all the confusion there on some of those briefings. But let's see. And I was reading some of the comments. Someone I'm connected with on LinkedIn actually shared this, and that's where I caught this. Do we really need another government agency to help manage or monitor, some of the cybersecurity, especially around critical infrastructure? And, this does raise an interesting debate, because the government doesn't own this stuff, right? This is all private sector owned, most of it. Granted, there are a few exceptions. The government does own in some places some of this infrastructure, even some of the municipalities, which it's a government, local government that owns the infrastructure. But most of it is public sector businesses. And some are investor-owned utilities, IOUs. In fact, they're the ones that own most of the electric grid. So once again, I don't know if this is the solution. Where we have basically a national cybersecurity agency. I still think a lot of this can and needs to be solved at that engineering level. We don't need to just be pushing more money into some agency, creating more red tape. Which once again, there's going to just be more lawyers, piling into it. And at the end of the day, what productivity, as far as the money that we're investing, are we getting an equal return? So it is an interesting thing to think about. Let's see. So that's that. NIST standard open for comments, secure inter-domain routing. So this is, let's see. Right, so this is applicable. Granted, it is general as far as IT goes, but because the power systems, power grid, in some cases there are some wide area network applications. I wanted to share this. Let's see, protecting the integrity of internet routing, border gateway protocol, PGP route origin validation. So if you're a computer scientist or communications guru or nerd and you're interested in this stuff, take a look. It's basically a standard or guide published by NIST, and it's open for comment. We'll close October 15th. So this is SP special publication, excuse me, not necessarily a full standard. Special publication 1814. So like I said, protecting the integrity and internet routing, border gateway protocol, PGP, route origin validation. So it's important work. Keep on cruising. Let's see. Private sector isn't sharing enough data with the DHS Threat Portal. So this, brings up another thing. A lot of people in the whole industrial control system space, it's like, oh, it's all about threat intelligence. We need to share, the latest threats, the latest trends, what we're observing. But when we look at, let's say, an asset owner who solely relies on this government portal, well, the information that's presented by the portal is only good enough as the information coming in. And what this article is basically observing is that the private sector isn't sharing the information with NKIC. So let's see. So 2015 Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act. Keep on cruising. 2 years after the DHS established it, just 6 non-federal organizations are using it to share threat indicators with the government. So that's only 6. I mean, this isn't even focused on industrial control systems. This is just general IT. Let's see. Hey, yep, sorry about that. You may notice a small break in the video there. But as far as this article, definitely recommended. It's something to think about as far as, the value of actual threat intel or threat information. So keep on cruising. Let's see. Yeah, so conferences, kind of moving on. So recent, I just want to remind people as far as some of the recent events. We went through these last week. EnergySec, ICS, so this is the ICSCERT Industrial Control System Joint Working Group. Kind of tidbit as far as a thought there. A lot of people at this particular event talk about how these systems don't need to be on the internet. They need to be strictly air-gapped as far as industrial control systems. And, my response, when possible, yes. But there are a number of smart grid applications where that's not possible. There's a number of even just regular power grid applications where, because we want to sell power between the different utilities, this market, that way we can create cheap and reliable power for everyone. It has to be connected. These systems have to be connected. But yes, there are certain security measures you can take to do that safely and securely. Then CGRE, that was the industry conference and exhibition, I think over in Paris. So a lot of good stuff, a lot of good folks, a lot of expertise were represented at that conference. Future, IEEE PS, PSRC, Power System Relay Committee, and then the PSCC, Power System Communications and Cybersecurity. So we are meeting next week in Minnesota. Let's see, I was just going to bring up. So, right, this is the technical committee. Just in case I mentioned this last time, in case this is your first time watching one of these videos, Power System Communications Cybersecurity Committee, the technical industry technical standards, best practices committee, looking at creating some of these standards and guides that are really focused on the power, all aspects of the power grid. So this is one of the technical committees. So let's hop over to calendar. And there it is. So the meeting agenda, and I just wanted to step through this to kind of remind people as far as some of the activities, or at least make people aware of some of the activities coming out of this group. So PSCC 5, so this is recommended practice for network communications. So this is going to be, just a document as far as recommended practices. S10 study group on utility and municipality challenges and implementing and understanding some of these cybersecurity standards. So not only the NERC-CIP, but also IEEE, IEC. What are some of those challenges? PSCC S6, so standards for integrating home automation, IoT to power utility communication systems. So these are power system engineers, communication engineers, industry experts who are basically looking at what would be those requirements that a utility needs to consider when connecting IoT devices to the communications infrastructure. Let's see, keep on cruising. This is an existing standard, the 1686 IED cybersecurity capabilities. So these are whenever you procure a new IED, intelligent electronic device, relay, RTU, remote terminal unit, any type of automation protection device for a power system application, if it needs to say it complies with 1686, which basically helps the asset owner say, okay, these are the capabilities, this is what this device can do. It's doing authentication, authorization, accountability. It's able to log, it's able to detect intrusions, it's able to sync up, if that's the configuration, as far as authentication, LDAP, radius. So that's a great resource, a great way to basically say what capabilities are in that IED. So keep on cruising. Keep on cruising. So some serial SCADA stuff. These are two different things that we're looking at. IEEE P1711.1. And then IEEE P1711, so different types of standards that are basically being explored as far as SCADA serial communication, synchrophaser stuff, IPsec, right? Utilizing IPsec, IEEE guide for protection of secondary networks, so that's K18, PSCC P10, standard for streaming telemetry transport protocol. PSCC S5, extensions to the cybersecurity requirements for substation protection and control systems. So this is a actual industry standard, PC 37.240. Here's another one. So this is, that's orientation. So if you're new, if next week's going to be your first time, definitely recommend attending that. So that's just day one, right? That's just the Monday. And then let's see, Tuesday, a lot more happening as far as even the power system. Here's one, I really want to call out: cloud computing uses and requirements for electric power utilities. So this is what I mentioned earlier. So this is a new working group, relatively new, examining these cloud requirements for power system applications. Let's see, keep on cruising. Some 61850 stuff. I don't want to spend too much time. I'll have a link below to this site and to the agenda here. But it's good stuff, right? I mean, all the way from generation protection, some more 61850 stuff, line protection. There's even a working group looking at geomagnetic disturbances. Here we go. Here's age 22, guide for cybersecurity for protection-related data files. So this is this is going beyond NERC-CIP and saying, okay, what are those protections? How do you do it? How do you define it around protection or protecting the files? So protection and control settings files, data points, all that information. What are some of the things you need to consider? Let's see. Guide for centralized protection and control subsystems within a substation. So I mean, these are the like I said, power system engineers, communication engineers, computer scientists that are developing these technical standards, and they're not, they're not just from the utilities, as far as who's being represented. It's also from industry vendors who basically attend and help develop these industry technical standards. So that's it. Texas Cyber Summit, I mentioned last time, talk was accepted, so that's awesome. So if you're attending, please feel free to reach out. GridSecCon, some exciting news there. I'm actually going to come back and talk about that in the future. S4 also, star, smiley face, talk was accepted there. And then Distributech, once again, star, smiley face. I'm going to be teaching me and 3 other people the 8-hour distribution cybersecurity course. So we taught that at several different events, and we're bringing that back. And then the other thing I wanted to mention. So this is a side rant. I actually have this up on my website here. So the video, as far as this recording, is going to be posted here, and then here's all the links. But here at the bottom, right? EMP, electromagnetic pulse. Is it FUD? So fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Some personal thoughts. Unless you're a power systems engineer or a physicist that's been studying this stuff, how can you truly say or even comment on electromagnetic pulse and say with certainty that it's FUD, that it's just fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and we don't need to pay attention to it, or we don't need to address it as an industry. And some of the people I see comment on this and make this statement, they're actually coming over from IT, from the general IT industry, computing industry. They don't have a physics background. They don't have an electrical engineering background, but they're making these statements. There's seriously, when you really get on the topic of even EMP, there's really only a handful of people that I consider somewhat experts in this. And I've been taking a closer look at this stuff for the past 4 or 5 years, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. But I don't think it's necessarily 100% FUD, so fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And there's a reason. And if you look at that second bullet, as far as one reason. So we know geomagnetic disturbances. So this is basically solar storms. The plasma, comes from the coronal CME, coronal mass ejection, travels, not necessarily at the speed of light, but pretty fast, right? It's coming from the sun, and then it interacts with Earth's magnetic field, and then it causes oscillations as far as the magnetic field, the disturbance, and this moving back and forth, this kind of waving, going back and forth. Actually induces a quasi-DC current on the transmission lines. So these are big conductors, big transmission lines, essentially an antenna. So whenever you have a voltage drop on one side compared to the other side, what happens? Higher potential, lower potential, you get current flowing. So we've actually seen these types of GMD events destroy transformers, burn them up, burn up the core. And we know that electromagnetic pulses, at least high altitude ones, can produce a similar type of event as a GMD event. And if we look at, I'm going to basically show you all this link real quick. And this is the Louisiana Grid Coalition. So it's a group here in Louisiana that's looking at all these different threats. And if you go to this link and come here to the bottom, so this was a industry conference hosted by the IEEE Power and Energy Society, who is really an international expert in all systems of the power, or all aspects of the power systems, power grid. So these are university professors. These are industry experts. And look at this. You're looking at these different formulas, talking about mutual impedance, load losses, maintaining situational awareness, and these are, eight different videos examining geomagnetic disturbances, the technology, the equations, the simulations, the modeling around this stuff. Then that's just GMD, right? That's just geomagnetic disturbances. So unless you are at this level, right, unless you are studying this stuff at this level, I don't understand how you can comment and say that universally EMP, electromagnetic pulse, is completely FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There was one person that I saw comment on this who I really respect, and in some cases I agree with his statement, and that was Dr. Schweitzer, Dr. Edward Schweitzer, who founded Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. And a lot of uses as far as their technology in the grid, and his response was, an EMP event would not cause a total blackout, and I agree with that. I really do agree with that. It may cause a localized event, but then again, this is just me scratching the surface looking at this stuff. But like I said, I don't see how just random people can comment on this and say that it's FUD, that EMP it's not going to have, or there would be no impact, right, of a type of event. And then just some quick humor, personal thought. By calling things you don't understand FUD, you are spreading FUD, which equals more confusion and slowing how the industry advances. So the act of naming things FUD is FUD, which means this post calling FUD is likely FUD. So a little funny thing, but that's it brings up a thing, right? As far as people calling things FUD to increase their own brand, to try to propel their own perception as far as being industry experts. When they have no background in this stuff. So yeah, FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, calling things FUD, in my opinion, when you don't understand it, is a way of spreading more FUD, right? Because you're talking FUD about FUD. So this whole thing, right, is probably FUD. So anyways, like I said, side rant. I don't mean to call anybody specifically out, but just please be aware of who you're really listening to. And this is important. This is important stuff. We need to make sure that, we're engineering a safer, more secure, more reliable power grid, power systems, and taking into an account everything. Especially as we're bringing more and more stations online, things that we can engineer and integrate into these stations to protect against threats in the future or events in the future. We need to consider that. Especially if it can be done economically here at the short term. So yeah, feel free. Any questions? I'm going to have a link to this, which has all these other links at the bottom in the comments. So this is fourth video as far as industry news. Today was September 7th, 2018. So any questions, comments? Feel free to reach out below. And thanks for watching.